In this country, there's a grossly inequitable distribution of wealth, resources, and power, which leads to major gaps between rich and poor and a reduced quality of life for the majority. For the past 40 years, Community Chairs has been dedicated to making progressive social change, addressing our problems at the systems and institutional level, and involving the people most affected by the problems and helping to solve them through collective action. Tonight, we celebrate the 2026 Circle of Change Award winners. People also dedicated to making change and who are working in their own way to help create just and caring communities. Through their activism, leadership, and quest for justice, tonight's honorees are an inspiration to us all. The Institution for Change Award goes to a business or institution that demonstrates socially conscious practices in the community. The 2026 award goes to Southland Books and Cafe. What began as a modest bookstore in 1992 has grown to include a cafe and pub welcoming to all. Southland Books and Cafe has established itself with firm roots in East Tennessee and has curated a safe space for the marginalized in a region where such spaces are not common.
I've created a safe space here in Maryville for everyone. So everyone is welcome, um, unless you're, here to cause trouble or um, not be kind. And so I've been at the bookstore for 34 years, and over the years it has expanded and grown. And there's now a cafe. There's also a pub bar space downstairs where once a month we host a monthly drag show. On average, yearly, we donate around 20 to 20 plus $1,000 to local charities and nonprofits. We also host an amateur drag show once a month. And we were also the host of the very first Blunt Pride event here in Blunt County a few years ago. I think what drives me in this work at this point, now being 58, is I'm going to outlast all of the haters and whatever detractors may be left and just continue to do this because spaces like this aren't very common in the South, particularly in the Southeast. The advice I would have for future change makers is tenacity and resilience are going to be your two best friends and probably the hardest things to remember to do. I think lots of people have positively affected my character and the way I think. The first person would probably be my grandmother. He used to ask my sister and I on a regular basis, what have we done to make it better? I had people like Nina, Greg, and Doug Campbell not exactly asking me the same questions or that same question, but certainly showing me that tenacity was, you can make a difference. And it does. The thing that keeps me hopeful is knowing that spaces like this will always exist. And that my 15-year-old niece will always have a place to just be whoever she's going to be.
Because Southland Books and Cafe has for decades established themselves as not only a safe space, but a model for inclusion and representation, we are proud to name them the 2026 Institution for Change. The Heart of Change Award was created to honor those who are often behind the scenes working to strengthen social change organizations and causes. The 2026 Heart of Change Award is presented to Richard Hannigan in recognition of a lifetime of commitment to social and environmental justice. For decades, Richard has been a steadfast advocate for peace, workers' rights, and the people of Southern Appalachia. Through his unwavering dedication, principled leadership, and tireless service, he has helped build stronger movements and more resilient communities.
Well, first of all, I wanted to thank Community Shares very much for this award. When I got the call, I was not expecting it, and I was tempted to turn it down. But then I thought about how important Community Shares is and how much I've been involved with social justice work over the years, and I decided that this was my time to reflect on this and to be a little bit in the public eye because of it. I worked with many different organizations as a sidelight while I was taking care of clinical work in community clinics and in neighborhood clinics where people without insurance were able to get at least some level of care. I've been very pleased to have spent my working life and my retirement in this area. I came here first to work for a community clinic called Knoxville Neighborhood Health Services, which was a African American run community clinic in Beaumont, Mechanicsville, and Lonsdale in Knoxville. I go back to COCA, which was the Knoxville Area Committee on Central America in the early 80s. I first got involved with organized labor here with an organization called TENCOSH, which was the Tennessee Committee on Occupational Safety and Health. Unfortunately, they no longer exist, but they worked for a decade or more on workplace employment, health issues, safety issues. They're the reason that Tennessee has a right to know law that's been on the books since the 80s. Highlander is, of course, an institution in East Tennessee, and I can't claim much contributions to them, but they've certainly helped me, and I've contributed a little, and I'm glad to have them in my history. I was also involved with a peace organization called LAMP, Local Alliance for Mideast Peace, during the first Gulf War. And another organization called Tennessee Valley Energy Coalition, which preceded many of the environmental groups that are now working for a sustainable economy in this region. OREPA still exists, and I have been a part of OREPA over many years. OREPA is the Oak Ridge Environmental Peace Alliance. I was a volunteer with SOCM. I was on the SOCM board for a while. SOCM was Save Our Cumberland Mountains when I was more involved. Now it's statewide organizing for community empowerment, and it's deeply involved currently with educational issues across the state, as well as other issues in many communities. One of my biggest involvements over the years has been the Tennessee Healthcare Campaign, which still exists, thankfully, and has contributed mightily to the beneficial health changes over the years in Tennessee for healthcare, and is fighting to prevent and turn back the negative things that the current administration is trying to do across the country for healthcare. I've been involved with Jobs with Justice of East Tennessee. I've been a volunteer in the past for a number of years at IAM's Nature Center. Well, I come from a comfortable working class family. It was at an upwardly mobile time in the 50s and 60s. And it was in a place, that's New York City, where education was all around me. My religious upbringing led me to seek the good in social justice, economic justice work. The civil rights movement was a great influence on me. The Vietnam War led me to seek conscientious objector status when the draft came up. And I had the privilege of being a white college student with access to a Jesuit priest who went to my draft board with me and told them that my religious objections to the war were valid. So that created in me a sense of a lifelong responsibility to choose work for justice and peace. Alternative service as a CO brought me to the Southern Appalachians. I got a lot and get a lot of encouragement and support from my wife of 52 years, Lucy, and from my daughters, Rachel and Susanna, still. These are dark, dark times right now. And it feels a little bit like, well, the work was good and you did some good, but boy, this is not where you hope to be when you were at the sort of the third act of your life. But that's just the way it is. On the local level, we need organizations that work together, that are unified, that are not divided by issues or divided by personalities. We really need to figure out how, when we need to, we can get everybody who's working for social change on the street, in the Congress, on the phone, wherever it is that we need to be, and how to do that. That's the local thing. And we need to just keep our eyes on the prize, hope on, as I was defining hope. We have to somehow achieve some basic changes in our national laws so that the wealth and resources that have been taken from the working class over the past 30, 40 years, we can recover those. We don't have to have everybody the same. There can still be rich people in a much, much more just society than we have now. And somehow we need to change the basic laws in our country. I hear talks of drastic changes where income for people under $1 million a year would not be taxed at all in an income tax. And that's the kind of thing that I'm thinking about.
Richard's work reflects a deep belief that lasting change is achieved not through individual acclaim, but through collective action, persistence, and care for one another. His contributions have left an enduring mark on the causes he has championed and on the countless lives he's touched along the way. It is with deep gratitude and admiration that we recognize Richard Hennigan as the recipient of the 2026 Heart of Change Award. The Danny Mayfield Champion of Change Award is presented to leaders in our community who have championed issues whose goal is to change conditions that create injustice. This year's award is presented to Amelia Parker in recognition of her years of steadfast service in social justice, particularly her work to expand civic engagement and advance a more just Knoxville for all. Through her organizing, advocacy, and public service, she has consistently brought people together to participate in shaping the decisions that affect their lives, serving as a powerful example of what collective and participatory governance can look like in practice.
Danny was someone who not only inspired me, but so many others to aim much higher than we ever expected we would be able to aim. My approach to leadership is my own. But my approach to political work and local politics actually has come from a collective, a little scrappy collective group of people that we call the City Council Movement. Through the City Council Movement, we came together and decided that we wanted to help get folks elected who would champion the needs of the underrepresented, of the poor, of the minorities, of the folks who keep getting left out in our city. And we especially wanted to address the 42% Black poverty rate and push our city to shift from an overemphasis on policing, and instead looking at the root causes of what was causing issues in our community, and address those root causes. So I signed up and said I would run, and I've remained committed to providing a different style of leadership while in city council or on city council. Um, for me, transparency is huge. For me, um, making sure that I'm sharing information with the public is a priority. And it's a priority for me because I do believe my power comes from the people. But in order for the people to exercise their power, the people have to be informed. So I got to keep the people informed. And that's what I've been focused on doing, and building, our collective political power here in this city, so that those with the money, those who've been in politics for maybe generations now, do not continue to own and hold all of that power, but we're able to spread that power out amongst the people. One of the things that drives me in this work is fairness. And since being elected, I've seen information withheld from people. I've seen misinformed, I've seen misinformation spread. Whether that's intentional or not, lots of times, honestly, it does feel intentional. And so being in a space, having a seat at the table, being able to get access to information that I can then get out to the public so that misinformation, especially disempowering misinformation, doesn't continue to spread, has been one of my priorities. We deserve a fair playing field. Anytime, the public, individuals tap into their own power and find their own voice, and they come before City Council to speak up, speak truth to power, it gives me hope. And so I wanted to thank you all who've been with me on this journey over the last, 7, 8 years of trying to shift our politics in Knoxville, and who continue to show up and fight for what is right and speak out against what is wrong. I appreciate you. This work isn't possible with just a representative. It also has to be reflected back in what the community is saying. I should be a reflection of you all, so that we can reinforce what each other's doing, and strengthen and make more possible our ability to win. So you all give me hope when you're engaged, and I'll keep fighting for you all. But I'm so appreciative of this recognition, and my ability to serve you all in this community and in my role on City Council over these last few years. Thank you so much.
Amelia Parker's resilience, integrity, and deep commitment to community are unmistakable. She leads with conviction, remains grounded in the needs of those most impacted, and continues to inspire others to step into their own power as agents of change. As someone inspired by Danny Mayfield's legacy, we know this recognition reflects the spirit of the work he championed, and we are confident he would be as proud as we are to honor Amelia Parker as the 2026 Danny Mayfield Champion of Change. The Fran Ansley Gartner of Change Award is awarded to an educator who teaches students to think critically about issues of injustice and encourages them to take action. This year's award is presented to a couple, Arlene and Eric Amarante, whose commitment to social justice extends far beyond the classroom. Through their teaching, mentorship, and community engagement, they empower students to connect learning with action, fostering a deep sense of civic responsibility and collective care.
We're both educators, and my focus is in deportation defense slash immigration, and his focus is in business law slash nonprofit.
Yeah, so I teach at the University of Tennessee Winston College of Law, and I run what's called a legal clinic where we provide free legal services to nonprofits and small businesses in Knoxville for folks who wouldn't ordinarily be able to afford legal services otherwise. So, yeah.
For a brief period of time, I also taught at LMU, and I was fortunate enough to connect with law students, and having one of us teach at one of the universities in Knoxville and the other teach at the other university, where we're both the only law schools in Knoxville, we had a unique opportunity to bring our students together, and we founded the Knoxville Latino Bar Association.
Education is part of my job. I'm paid to teach, but I'm also extraordinarily lucky in that my job also requires me to reach out to the community and find folks who need the legal help for my students to provide. And so the students are learning, providing that service for folks in the community. And so I think I have maybe the best job on the planet. And for me, I think like a lot of folks, I was raised to care about other people. That's how my mom wanted me to be when I was growing up. I remember when I was a kid, I was quite young, and we walked by a musician who was not very good, but my mom put some money in his hat. And I was like, Mom, why are you supporting that guy? He was no good. She's like, oh, what do you know? He's out here trying. And I was like, I don't know. He might need just to go out and get a job. And my mom was like, oh my God, I raised a Republican. And I didn't really know what that meant. I was young enough to really, I didn't quite understand what parties were, but it did affect me. And I was like, wait, do I want to be the person who's helping other people or criticizing other people? And so that was instilled in me pretty young. So what drives the work that I do now is trying to help students who may be like me in the middle of law school. They came to law school for one reason or another. They found out that they couldn't really do that for whatever reason. And I'm here to tell them that doesn't mean you have to give up everything and become a corporate lawyer and just make as much money as you can. You can still do good. There are lots of ways of helping. And so that drives me as an educator.
The realization that we are all we have and that nothing will change unless we change it is sort of at the core of what brings me hope. And recognizing also that there are others who want to do this work, and perhaps we are currently feeling at a loss, we're stumbling, trying to find our way, but the existence of so many people wanting to find a different way forward is what gives me hope. None of us can do anything by ourselves, period. Change comes in finding ways to create harmony with others, and so it really is about connecting our struggles, and the moment that we are living in reveals the extent to which our fates are interconnected. And so I hope that future generations will have a roadmap, at least, of what struggles they can connect, and also the desire to build those strong connections for mutual solidarity.
So it's the middle of May. For folks who don't know, we're in the middle of the NBA playoffs, and I'm a big NBA fan. You always hear like old school coaches saying, "There's no such thing as a 20-point shot. Like you're not going to win this all in one play." And so that is something I try to keep in mind, that if you can knock down your deficit from 20 to 18, that's a step in the right direction. 18 to 16, that's a step in the right direction. And each of those steps is the necessary foundation to finally get to where you might be in front. So when I think about intersectionality, obviously, or for me at least, the first thing I do is think about Kimberly Crenshaw's piece, where it's the first time I saw the word intersectionality. I know there were a lot of discussions around there, but that's when it was coined. And if you read that piece, it's not just talking about identity, as if that wouldn't be enough. It's not just talking about multiple identities and how they interact, But it was also taking that and trying to come up with a legal tool or a legal argument, a novel argument, in order to properly see the plaintiff in the case as both a woman and a black person, and how those two things act on the individual separately and together, and how you could take that and hopefully make a winning argument in a discrimination case. And so I think I like to think of it as a an option or a tool or a lever that you can pull to try and get justice where there wasn't justice before. So that's how I like to think of it as well. And so my goal has never been to just to try and change minds through blunt force.
I think also, like, at the core is a subtext, right? Of what kind of world do we want to live in? Do we want to live in a world where my reality is what dominates, or yours? Because I think my reality offers an opportunity for harmony, whereas this proposed reality is more about domination, and that is specifically a domination of people who look like me. I refuse. I feel like we could almost say the name of the person at the same time, and it's actually quite beautiful that it is also like Fran Ansley, the award that we're winning. When we first moved here, she found out that I did immigration. We had coffee constantly, but I didn't really know who she was or what she did, what she had done, what she meant to this community, or even the world. And at the time, I was completing a master's when I first moved here in social justice and community action. And there was a reading, something written by John Gaventa and Fran Ansley. And my program was in Edinburgh. And so I am like living in Tennessee and studying in Edinburgh, and then learning that a world-class thinker lives in my city. Not only that, but she is ready and willing to have coffee with me and show me in a very kind way my deficits. And she did a lot of this really by example, and it has become a philosophy, and something that we often say in this house is, what would Fran do?
Eric and Arlene's influence extends far beyond the classroom. Through their leadership, advocacy, and unwavering commitment to justice, they've inspired generations of students and community members to imagine and build a more equitable world. Their work reflects the very spirit of this award and the legacy of Fran Ansley, whose passion for justice ignited countless others to carry this work forward. It is no surprise that Eric and Arlene are among those whose path were illuminated by Fran's torch. Today, we are honored, as we know Fran would be, to recognize them as true gardeners of change, cultivating hope, courage, and transformation wherever they go. The Campaign for Change Award honors a recent campaign that is working in pursuit of social change, includes grassroots support, and is making a significant impact on a constituency or the community at large. This year's award is presented to La Migra Watch for their powerful work to train, organize, and support community members as first responders in the face of an unjust immigration system. The Migra Watch is a campaign of ICE out of East Tennessee, a regional coalition of parents, students, educators, and community members united in a belief that every person deserves to live in safety, dignity, and belonging.
I think I've been doing work in this sphere of social change making for the last decade. But when I was thinking about that question, the people who came to mind were really, it was the core group of people who kind of pulled ICE out back together to answer the call to create this Migro Watch hotline and this rapid response network a year and a half ago at this point. There's that core group of like between 4 and 8 people and who spent hours and hours and hours and hours strategizing and training each other and loving one another and laughing together, feeding each other. I have found that so formative and like life-bringing to me as a community organizer and as a human being, to be able to engage in this work in a way that also is infused with hope and joy and like the energy of creating a microcosm in which we are liberated and seen and celebrated for who we are and all of the gifts that we bring. And I'm just really grateful to have been able to experience that.
To see so many people taking advantage of the trainings that people are offering. Last I heard, trainings were, 40, 50 people deep. That brings me hope.
We do this work in service and in defense of people who are most affected by Trump's immigration policy, but also the ICE is a system that is violent and has existed for much longer than any one presidential administration. And so that is, of course, who we hope is impacted in a positive way by our work. But I think one of the things I've been really surprised by that I find really beautiful is how impactful it has been for the people who are choosing to engage more deeply around an issue that troubles them. I see people activated and standing up for themselves and one another, feeling empowered to do something in a world where doing something can feel really, really scary. And I'm really grateful that the people who volunteer to work with us also are stepping out of their comfort zone and being brave. And I hope all of us are being changed in some way as we do this work.
Don't be scared to think big and start small. I think Alejandro thinks that everyone has the potential to get involved somehow. Let's make the ask.
Through their La Migra Watch campaign, they have built networks of care and rapid response across East Tennessee, equipping communities with information, resources, and collective strategies in places too often left unheard and unprotected. Their work reflects the power of ordinary people coming together to protect one another and to insist on justice where it is too often denied. We are honored to recognize the La Migra Watch as the 2026 Campaign for Change Award recipient and grateful for the courage, solidarity, and organizing power they bring to our region. As we close tonight, we are reminded that meaningful change is never accidental. It is built through vision, strategy, generosity, and unwavering perseverance. Our honorees embody this truth. They remind us that words matter, but it is action that transforms communities and creates lasting, sustainable change. We are also called to recognize the urgency of the moment we're living in. Across our communities and our country, hard won civil rights are being challenged and rolled back. Violence and discrimination continue to impact immigrants, trans people, people of color, women, and LGBTQIA plus communities. Too many people remain without adequate health care. Our public education systems face ongoing strain and dismantling, and there is a growing normalization of government sanctioned harm. And yet, tonight reminds us of something essential. We are not alone in this work. The Circle of Change Awards exists not only to honor those who lead, but to remind us of the collective strength we hold together. In the presence of tonight's honorees and in community with one another, we are reminded that another world is not only possible, but already being built through the work, courage, and solidarity in this room. Thank you for being a part of this movement and for continuing to work for change together.